Don't you dare ask us to cancel our plans again. We've had these Elton John tickets for months. My mother's voice echoed through the hospital room, sharp and cold. I sat frozen, phone trembling in my hands. It was Christmas Eve at Las Vegas Medical Center, just me, my 2-year-old twins, Ethan and Emily, quietly playing in the corner, and Valerie, the nurse, checking my vitals. The pain in my abdomen felt like someone twisting a knife inside me, but the look of indifference on my mother's face hurt even worse. My name is Natasha Wilson, 33 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the afterthought in my own family. My younger sister, Jessica, the golden child, could do no wrong. Meanwhile, I couldn't even get my parents to watch their only grandchildren while I underwent emergency surgery after complications from my husband's death 6 months ago. Doctors had found internal bleeding that needed immediate surgery. My parents, however, were only worried about missing their concert and Christmas Eve with Jessica. When I begged for help after exhausting every other option, my father's words sliced deeper than any scalpel. "You're becoming a real nuisance, Natasha. We're retired now. We deserve to enjoy our lives without your constant problems." For 3 years, I had supported them financially, sending $2,500 every month to cover their mortgage and expenses. Even after James died, I kept doing it out of love and loyalty. I thought that was what family did. How wrong I was. Tears blurred my vision as Valerie gently squeezed my shoulder. "My friend Olivia is a professional nanny. She works with kids who've experienced trauma. Let me call her for you," she said softly. Her compassion contrasted so sharply with my parents' cruelty that it nearly broke me. My twins were too young to understand. They'd already lost their father to a drunk driver. Now they might lose me too. The thought terrified me, but even more horrifying was the idea of leaving them with people who saw them as burdens. "Yes, please call her," I whispered. And in that moment, through the pain and betrayal, I made my decision to finally cut the poisonous ties that had bound me my entire life. Memories flooded back, graduating college with honors, only to have my achievement overshadowed because Jessica booked a local commercial that same weekend. My parents complaining that my wedding venue was too far. Their single, obligatory visit after the twins were born. James had always been my rock through it all. "We'll build our own family," he used to say, "one that knows how to love." And we did until 6 months ago, when that drunk driver took him away and left me struggling to keep everything afloat. Still, I sent my parents money every month, even increasing it when they mentioned inflation. I thought I was doing the right thing. But lying in that hospital bed, barely conscious, I realized the truth: love isn't one-sided. When Olivia arrived, she was everything Valerie promised: warm, patient, and immediately adored by my twins. As the surgical team prepared me for the operating room, I asked for my phone. With trembling fingers, I sent 2 messages. To the bank, cancel all future transfers to my parents' account. To my parents, I will no longer be providing financial support. My children and I deserve better than being your afterthoughts. Do not contact me again. As they wheeled me into surgery, I felt something unexpected: relief. The operation was successful, though recovery was slow. Olivia stayed with the twins around the clock, caring for them as if they were her own. On my 5th day in the hospital, I noticed my phone flashing, 27 missed calls and dozens of texts. My parents' messages shifted from confusion to outrage to desperation. "You can't just cut us off like this. We've planned a cruise next month. The tickets are non-refundable." Not one message asked if I'd survived the surgery. Jessica's texts were different. "Mom and Dad said you were having some minor procedure. What's going on? Why are they freaking out about money?" It hit me: my parents had lied to her, downplaying my condition to justify abandoning me. When I told her the truth, her reply came fast. "Oh my God, Natasha, I had no idea it was an emergency. They told me you were being dramatic." "I'm so sorry. I would have watched the twins if I'd known." For the first time in years, I believed her. Jessica wasn't heartless, just raised to think her comfort mattered most. Maybe now she'd finally see them for who they were. When I was discharged, I took control of what came next. I hired Olivia part-time to help during recovery, contacted a lawyer to update my will, naming a trusted friend as guardian for my twins, and blocked my parents' numbers. Jessica, I allowed limited contact while I decided if she truly meant her apology. Financially, cutting off my parents was a turning point. That $2,500 I'd been sending every month, nearly a third of my income, could now go toward childcare and rebuilding my savings. For the first time in years, I could breathe. That night, as the twins slept peacefully down the hall, I lay in bed feeling something new: self-respect. Then my phone pinged. I just had a huge fight with mom and dad about how they treated you. Jessica texted, I'm staying at a hotel tonight. Can we talk tomorrow? Maybe, just maybe, I wasn't completely alone after all. 2 weeks later, as I slowly regained my strength, the pain in my abdomen began to fade, but the wound my parents left behind was finally starting to heal. 2. I worked from home, grateful for the flexibility. My graphic design clients had been understanding about my limited hours, and remote work meant I could stay close to my twins. Jessica had visited twice since my surgery, bringing homemade meals and spending time with Ethan and Emily. Our conversations were cautious at first, fragile, tentative, but as the days passed, she began to open up. They always made it seem like you were the one pulling away, she admitted one evening as we watched the twins play. I never realized they were the ones pushing you out. For the first time in years, I saw my sister not as the golden child but as another victim of our parents' manipulation. I wasn't ready to fully trust her yet, but I appreciated her honesty. Then came the knock I'd been dreading. Through the peephole, I saw my parents, my mother clutching her designer purse, my father standing rigid with arms crossed, impatience carved into his expression. My heart pounded as I cracked the door open just enough to speak. What do you want? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Natasha, darling, my mother began sweetly, we've been so worried. You haven't answered our calls. We needed to make sure you and the twins were all right. We're fine, I said flatly. Now if that's all. It's not all, my father cut in, pressing against the door. We need to talk about this financial situation. The bank called about our mortgage, and we had to dip into our cruise savings to cover it. Their words hit harder than the pain in my healing incision. No concern, no apology, just money. I told you I was cutting financial ties, I said evenly. I meant it. But sweetie, my mother pleaded, we've come to depend on that money. Your father and I adjusted our lifestyle based on your commitment to help us. My commitment? I repeated, disbelief flooding my chest. I supported you out of guilt while you couldn't even help during my emergency surgery. My father's jaw tightened. That's not fair, Natasha. We had plans. Plans more important than your daughter's life? My voice trembled, but not from fear. The doctor said there was a chance I might not survive. Did either of you even ask how the surgery went? Silence. We made one mistake, my mother whispered dramatically. Are you really going to punish us like this? This isn't punishment, I said quietly. It's consequence. I spent my whole life trying to earn your love. You made your priorities clear the moment you chose Elton John tickets over your grandchildren's safety. We're your parents, my father snapped. And I'm a parent too, I said, and I would never treat Ethan and Emily the way you've treated me. At that moment, Emily toddled into view, clutching her stuffed giraffe. My mother's tone shifted instantly. There's my precious grandbaby, she cooed, crouching down. Grandma brought presents. Emily hesitated, glancing at me with wide, uncertain eyes. I think you should leave, I said quietly. If I'm ever ready to talk, I'll reach out. But the money, my father started, is no longer your concern, I finished, and gently closed the door. The next morning, they returned, this time with my Aunt Patty, the self-appointed family peacemaker. Natasha, honey, she said through the door I refused to open, let's be reasonable. Your parents are struggling. They managed just fine before they retired early, I replied. They made their choices. My mother's voice broke through, trembling with manufactured desperation. We made those choices because you promised to help. We had to cancel our cruise. We might lose the house. I almost laughed. When had I ever promised lifetime support? I'd offered temporary help, and they'd turned it into dependency. Mom, Dad, I said firmly, I'm recovering from major surgery and raising 2 toddlers. This conversation is over. I walked away as their knocking grew more frantic. Hours later, my phone buzzed, a group email from my father, sent to the entire extended family. In it, he painted me as an ungrateful daughter who had abandoned her retired parents in their time of need after all they'd done for her. He left out the part about the concert. What he didn't expect was the backlash. Cousin Michael was the first to reply. Uncle Robert, didn't you just buy a new boat last month? And Aunt Diana, wasn't that a new diamond bracelet at Thanksgiving? One by one, Relatives chimed in, some publicly, others privately messaging me to ask what had really happened. Even Aunt Patty called later, her tone softer. "I had no idea about your surgery," she said. "They told me you were overreacting about a routine checkup." Jessica, now firmly in my corner, helped me draft a calm, factual reply to the family thread. "I recently underwent emergency surgery with serious complications. My parents refused to care for my children because they had concert tickets. I am focusing on my recovery and my twins." That was all. It was enough. Support poured in. Michael's wife dropped off home-cooked meals. A distant cousin offered to babysit for free. Jessica spent weekends with me, rebuilding the bond we'd both lost to years of manipulation. Even Valerie from the hospital stayed in touch. She connected me with a support group for young widowed parents. Our first meeting was over Zoom, and for the first time since James's death, I felt understood, seen by people who knew what this kind of loneliness felt like. Meanwhile, my parents' financial facade crumbled. Jessica later discovered they'd taken out a second mortgage on their house to buy the boat and fund vacations, assuming I'd always cover their primary payments. "They've been lying to everyone," Jessica said, disgusted. "They're not broke, they're just living beyond their means." As their voicemails grew more desperate, their power over me faded. Each message, each plea, felt weaker than the last. I was free. 1 month after my surgery, Jessica called with unexpected news. "They got a foreclosure notice," she said quietly, 60 days to pay or lose the house. "What about their savings?" I asked, rocking Emily on my knee. "Gone. Dad invested in some ridiculous scheme a friend pitched at the golf club. They lost nearly everything." That night, I got 2 long texts, one from each parent. The guilt was gone from their tone, only panic remained. "We never thought you'd actually cut us off. We assumed you'd calm down and start sending money again." The arrogance stunned me. They hadn't learned a thing. But I had. The support group had introduced me to Diana, a widowed real estate agent who'd rebuilt her life from scratch. She helped me explore new possibilities, selling my cramped apartment, relocating somewhere more affordable, and designing a life that didn't revolve around survival, but peace. For the first time in years, I felt not broken but rebuilding. And this time, I was doing it on my own terms. The memorial websites I created for James had quietly grown into something bigger. Members of my support group began commissioning sites of their own, and word spread. For the first time since becoming a widow, I felt a sense of purpose that went beyond just surviving. That newfound stability stood in stark contrast to my parents' unraveling. When they showed up at my apartment unannounced, this time carrying a detailed spreadsheet of their debts, the shift was unmistakable. "We need $144,000 to catch up on the mortgage and avoid foreclosure," my father said, his usual authority cracked by desperation. I invited them in, not out of guilt, but curiosity. I wanted to hear their version of things now that they were finally facing the consequences. "What about selling the boat?" I asked as they sat at my small dining table. "We'd take a loss," my father said immediately. "And the timeshare?" "We've tried," my mother added quickly. "The market's awful. Besides, those are our retirement luxuries." I almost laughed. "Luxuries you can't afford." "We could afford them with your help," my father countered, tone sharpening. "It's the least you could do after everything we've done for you." "What exactly have you done for me?" I asked softly. The question hung in the air like smoke. Just then, the twins wandered in, Ethan clutching his toy truck, Emily babbling happily. My parents' faces softened. "There are our precious babies," my mother cooed, reaching for Emily, who hid behind my legs. "They don't know you," I said plainly. "You've seen them maybe 3 times. That was your choice." "That's not fair," my father argued. "We're busy people." "Too busy for your only grandchildren? Too busy to help when I was in surgery, but not too busy to ask for money?" I said. "That tells me everything I need to know about your priorities." My mother's face fell, whether from guilt or performance, I couldn't tell. "Without your help, we'll lose everything," she whispered. "I lost my husband," I replied evenly. "My children lost their father. We survived. You will too." 3 months later, the inevitable happened. They sold their house to avoid foreclosure. Jessica kept me updated, though I stayed distant. They'd moved into a modest condo after selling the boat and timeshare at steep losses. "They're telling everyone you abandoned them," Jessica said one afternoon. "It's surreal. They claim you promised to support them forever. Let them talk, I replied, feeling strangely calm. The truth doesn't need defending. And it didn't. Extended family members reached out after learning what really happened. Even my father's sister, who had always defended him, called to offer support once she heard about their refusal to help during my surgery. Meanwhile, my own life was blossoming. Diana from my support group helped me buy a small 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. The mortgage was cheaper than my old rent, and the twins finally had a backyard to play in. My memorial website business grew, allowing me to scale back other clients and focus on meaningful work. Olivia still helped with childcare a few days a week, but I built my schedule around Ethan and Emily. Most importantly, I'd found community. Neighbors brought casseroles when I moved in. The support group arranged playdates. Jessica became a true sister instead of a rival. Even Valerie from the hospital sometimes dropped by with her kids. I had lost my husband and cut ties with my parents, yet I felt less alone than ever. 6 months after my surgery, a handwritten letter from my mother arrived. I nearly threw it away, but curiosity won. Inside was something I'd never expected: a sincere apology. She admitted to jealousy and resentment, confessing that she'd equated my independence with rejection. When you asked for help during surgery, she wrote, you were reaching out and we failed you completely. I'm deeply sorry. She explained that they'd downsized. My father had taken a part-time job, and they'd started living modestly. She didn't ask for money or forgiveness, just acknowledgement. Jessica, ever cautious, warned me, they've been talking about writing to you for weeks. Dad even had a heart scare recently, chest pains, high blood pressure. It's humbled him a little. I wasn't ready to respond. I needed time to understand whether this was real growth or just another strategy. That night, I looked through old family photos. Behind the smiles, I saw patterns I'd missed before: performances of love that always centered on their needs, not mine. A year after my surgery, I finally agreed to meet them at a quiet cafe near my home. They looked smaller somehow. My father's confidence had been replaced by humility, my mother's designer clothes by simplicity. The twins stayed with Jessica. I wasn't ready to blend those worlds yet. We sat in silence until my father spoke, tears in his eyes. I've been a terrible father and an even worse grandfather. I don't expect forgiveness, but I see it now, how selfish we've been. My mother nodded. We've been in family therapy, she said softly. Jessica pushed us into it. It's been eye-opening. I didn't rush to forgive. Instead, I shared photos of the twins and updates about our life. For once, they listened, really listened. As we stood to leave, my father asked quietly, would it be possible someday to know our grandchildren? That depends on your actions, I said. If you're truly committed to change, we can start with short supervised visits. But understand this, my children will only know people who respect their mother. Walking away, I felt no resentment, no guilt, just peace. Whether my parents had truly changed, I couldn't yet know, but I had. I was no longer a daughter begging for approval. I was a mother, clear-eyed and strong, fiercely protective of the peace I'd fought to build.